Good evening, everybody. Welcome again to another evening with wonderful people. We have today Miss Reena Mohan. Hello, ma'am.
Hi, hi.
Hi. And Mr. Suresh Rajamani. Sir, hello.
Hi.
Yeah. And this session will be hosted by Aakash Gawali. Yeah, this is small introduction. Aakash, I don't think both Reena and Suresh would need any introduction. Aakash is editing password from Film and Television Institute of India, Pune, and he has been working professionally as an editor for past couple of years. He's native from Aurangabad, and he works from Pune, Mumbai, uh, shifting between the places. So, not taking much time, I'll leave it to Akash to hold the session. I'll come back with the questions later. Yeah, Akash, up to you.
Thank you, Najib. So, I'd like to start with the very first frame of the film, which is the FTI slate. And I was very curious to know what is a FTI slate doing in the film. So, could you tell if there is any story to that film, that particular shot?
No, in fact, the slate is also, it's numbered one by one by one, and
Yeah.
there's a story, but you're not supposed to read any significance into it. So, this film is shot on 16 mm, as you know,
Okay.
and we had to have. Um, a clap for the night performance. I mean, otherwise it was like Suresh and Ranjan would be, doing these chutkis or some little that sort of thing, some accidental kind of syncing, and sometimes not at all. But because we were shooting this night performance, and we just we didn't want to. It was dark. Suresh was in some corner. It was sort of difficult, so we decided to have a clap. And I asked Arjun Gauri Saria, who I know personally otherwise, and to get me a clap from the Film Institute because he was a student there. And so he did. He got me the clap from the institute, and we'd actually asked her to enact certain scenes from the plays. So they were, I don't know what numbers we gave them, random, something, whatever. And we were winding up. We'd finished, and then she said, "I want to say something else." And yeah, so I don't know who was it, Suresh, who was writing the clap. Said "Kya number de," and I said one by one by one, because we hadn't done that. We'd done 13 by something, by 12 by something, whatever. So and then it turned out, she was introducing herself, and it was so appropriate to actually keep the clap. I mean, otherwise we weren't planning to
Yeah.
keep the clap, but this one by one just became, it just fitted in. It was wonderful.
Yeah, because for me personally, it gave a whole new meaning to the entire film as the film revealed itself. Because 16mm was the last or the first student project that people from other disciplines get to direct a film, and shooting on 16mm was a very special experience. And as the film progresses, the film is about film itself. So I thought it was a very meaningful thing to keep at the start of the film. So I was very curious why.
Yeah, it's not accident. It's one of those, completely, documentary moments where,
Yeah,
everything just, fits in wonderfully.
yeah. So uh, could you tell how different it is now versus shooting on a film or stock? Like, how often do you shoot on digital now? And what do you feel is the difference between now and then in terms of documentary footage, like the quantity of footage that you get these days, and how did you manage to cover everything with limited amount of stock?
Well, number one is the fact that we don't have separate sound. I think that's a big, there's no separate sort of soundtrack that you're syncing and matching on video. It's all, that's a big relief. But other than that, I mean, the big difference, of course, is the amount of footage you shoot. I mean, the rushes now are like, um, I mean, sort of extraordinary length. I mean, duration or whatever, because yeah, people just keep the camera on, and there's no sense of why you're shooting, what you're shooting, how you're shooting. तुमको pan करना है तुम एक बार ही करोगे, shook, okay, do it again. Whereas on 16 you kind of rehearsed what you were doing and everything was quite. I mean, Kamlabai was of course shot on a very, very low budget, very stringent conditions. So I mean, that's not really a sort of very good example to go by, but yeah, the essential difference between celluloid and video. And in fact, my next film, the second film I did was beta, and the third film I did was DV. And I could see even in myself, in the way I was approaching filming myself within, the span of a few years, was careless, almost. It's like you'd say, yeah, I think I'll take it. Let's take it. Let's just shoot it. That's. But I don't think I film which is less than 100 hours or something. Kamlabai, the ratio was 1:4, 1:5. So if we length is 47 minutes or something, 42, whatever. Yeah, you can imagine. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if I could butt in.
Yeah, please do.
Like most of the films, at the end of it, I would feel, I mean, if there were a couple of more roles, we could have some things that we didn't get, we could have got it, or we could have got them better. But now it's the other way. I mean, like Reena was saying, shooting without any thought is becoming the kind of norm. I mean, so that is and also Reena, now still I prefer, a lot of us prefer to be still separate, and we can sync it without any issues. With especially this time code being there, it's like very simple. Syncing is no longer the chore that it was.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Suresh, could you please go ahead now?
No, I think it's just in terms of managing material is really what I'm saying. Nothing to do with audio quality. Of course, that's a concern, and yeah, I guess that's why you prefer to record it separately. But material managing, yeah.
And Suresh sir, could you tell us about what equipment you used on Kamlabai?
It was a cassette recorder.
Okay.
There was Sony, and I think there was another company, Marantz, which made these kind of so-called pro cassette recorders. And there was this company, I think in New York, called the Film Group. I don't know if they still exist. They made something, they put a circuit inside the recorder that gave it pulse. So people who shot in film would remember that you needed something called a pulse. So which was there natively on the Nagra, for example, but it doesn't have. So the sync there could be drift. So to not have the drift, they put in a circuit which recorded the pulse on one track. Your cassette they were all stereo, right? So you got 2 tracks, meaning totally 4 tracks, 2 tracks one side, 2 tracks the other side. So, but you recorded audio only on one track, and on the other track was the pulse.
Okay.
And you flipped it, and you had another, and they made a small little box called Resolver, which while you transferred it onto SEPMAG, provided the kind of sync that was required.
Okay.
And
And
that was, the cassette recorder was my recorder. And along with the Sony cassette recorder, I mean, I think it came part of the kit or something. Most people seem to have, who owned this recorders, had something called really cheap Sony mic that came with it. Okay. So in fact, the first schedule that we did, that was my only mic. I had the mic, and in Kamlabai's home, I took one of the bamboo sticks that they were using to put clothes up the clothesline, and to which I kind of taped my mic, and that was my boom pole, and that was my gear. And on the second schedule, by the time it was quite a gap,
Yeah,
right?
the third schedule actually. Mohan and I went in
Yeah, you guys went
second
for a small
schedule, and I used that same gear. So it was a third schedule, which was in 90. Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time Ranjan had got a wired lavalier for the other film that we all worked together. So there is this, if you see the film, there is this huge jump in quality between the first schedule and the second schedule. Sounds very, very different, which is something still kind of, when I see the film, I said like, oh God.
Yeah, that's what was my next question. That how do you maintain the same? How do you maintain the continuity basically if you're shooting for so long? And
that was a problem. That is a problem, and it kind of shows.
And what about other films which you work on, except Kamlabai? Later on, how do you manage?
Later, kind of slowly. In fact, Ranjan and Vasudha made a slightly. I mean, before that, I did one film with Ranjan and Vasudha called Voices from Baliapal. For that, we rented equipment. Okay. So I had a Nagra and I had a good microphone. And then there was this other.
I'm going to interrupt now. Sorry. But Aakash, Kamlabai was, like I said, self-funded. So I don't think this paucity of equipment is typical of the conditions Suresh worked under. I mean, I had to borrow equipment from Anand Patwardhan. So he gave the camera to us because Ranjan was shooting and Ranjan was his cameraman otherwise. And so he gave us the CP16. And I mean, there was no way I could afford to rent sound equipment. So Anand had this little Walkman, which Suresh just described with that mic, and that's what we used. So yeah. I mean, I've sort of always been amazed. I mean, Suresh said, "This is what I get." I mean, I still remember. I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but yes, this is what you get." And I don't know. I've never heard the difference in quality or anything. I've never heard anyone complain.
But that's not the only film that I've recorded on cassette. There have been other films too.
Oh, really?
But I got better microphones, but my recorders were, for some of them, were still.
Acha. Okay. Yeah. Which ones were these?
Nilita's.
Okay, that was the Walkman.
Both, yeah.
Eyes of Stone.
Cassette. Both.
Acha. Okay.
So, ma'am, I've heard you mentioned.
Suresh hasn't finished. You will.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm done. Yeah, I mean, if I think of something, I'll part it.
No, you were talking about how you were recording for other films that you were doing.
Yeah, no, the second schedule, I mean, the third schedule, really.
No, not Kamlabai, but other Ranjan, films you were talking about. You're talking about Baliapal and other films.
Yeah, Baliapal was, again, even that was a self-funded film, but we managed again to get, I mean, they rented but Nagra and a mic. So that was how I work, which is, and then there were other films which I did on cassette, but mostly Nagra was that. It was the Nagra period. It was the Nagra phase in my life.
Okay, so ma'am, I've heard you mention in previous interviews that there was this phase of unemployment that you had to go through before making Kamlabai, and now I feel this circle is again coming to like this unemployment is coming a full circle, especially during this pandemic. So how did you manage then? Like how did you utilize your time then and now? And same for you, Suresh, as well.
Okay, so at that time, of course, I mean, I was living in Bombay. There were a whole lot of us, four of us. We lived in a flat, and we were just sort of young filmmakers. It was characteristic of that time to be unemployed. I mean, you worked on one project at a time. There were no double shifts or something, and everything was much, much, much slower. I mean, there was no television work. So you did a project, and especially at the editing stage, as you know, there are always breaks. Films are being shot in schedules, so you can edit one schedule or two schedules, and then you wait till whatever. So yeah, there was that sort of thing often, and I mean, even if I was editing, I would be free to go to the sound studio and write cue sheets for the recorders so that he could focus on transferring sound and his own work, so to speak. Also, because I think most recorders have terrible handwriting. I could never make out the cue sheets. Also, they're like doctors' handwriting, sort of. So anyway, jokes apart, there was a lot more time then, and I don't think unemployment was something that you worried about because it was sort of typical. It was taken for granted that there'd be gaps, and I think during the pandemic, this is sort of it's a different feeling, but for various reasons, in any case, I've not been professionally very active also for the last 10 years, and I mean, I work on projects, but very, very few. So I think I'm I've been living in pandemic mode for almost 10, 11 years, sort of. Yeah, I mean, I just use the time, I think, reading, cooking, gardening, whatever, doing stuff like that. I don't worry so much about, uh, I don't worry so much about unemployment, I think. Yeah. Some of it is self-enforced. Yeah. Suresh?
Yeah, I mean, there used to be huge breaks for sure. But again, like Reena said, some of them are self-enforced. And I took projects which I kind of wanted to work, but then said no to projects that I didn't want to. Um, there was this, when television came in, then we started to get that much more work. But again, there would be huge gaps in between where I did no work. So I also used it to kind of listen to I mean, I have to listen to music, so that's always there. So all these things, meeting friends who I hadn't met in some time. So kind of, that's it. So I mean, now it is like, in fact, this period was supposed to be very busy. So, but then everything just fell apart.
Mm-hmm. So did that gap for you, gave you time to research more about this film? Like you were supposed to take this interview for Kamlabai, and did this period help you research the film in any way, or how was it like?
Okay, so the starting point of Kamlai was reading the interview in a magazine called Cinema Vision. I came across this, and I was using that time, this period of unemployment. I just finished editing for Manjeera Datta, Sacrifice of Babulal Bhuiya, and I hadn't got any other project. And so yeah, I was reading Cinema Vision. I was reading about the history of Indian film, and I came across this interview. I got very excited, very, very excited. I mean, that whole issue was devoted to silent film. And and she was she lived in Pune, we were in Bombay, and I just sort of got in touch with Rani Burra, who used to work on Cinema Vision. She got in touch with Rekha Sabnis, who got in touch with Vikram Gokhale. We found out Kamlabai's number, address. We landed up at her house. And I just want to actually research and write a book on silent cinema, a more detailed. I don't think I never saw myself as a filmmaker. I didn't think of myself as an editor who's waiting to make her own film. I mean, I loved editing. I still do. I still like saying I'm an editor rather than a filmmaker as such. But on the way back, we took a train back, and it was great fun. We spent the day with Kamlabai, and we played cards, and she was cheating, and it was just fun. She was just so naughty and so wicked, and I was bowled over. And Rani said, "You have to make a film. You can't capture this in an interview, and you have to make a film." And I said, "But I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not making a film." And I want to do this book. And so the whole way back in the Deccan Queen, I remember she just, kept going on about a film, we have to do a film, etc. Anyway, I sort of let it be for a few, days, weeks, I can't even remember. And, but the more I thought about it, it just seemed like, okay, so we'll do some documentation, and I'll do an interview, and I'll do a series of interviews. I mean, I don't think I thought, really. And I applied to Films Division for funding, and they said, it's a first film, and we don't know your work, and no. And I tried Sangeet Natak, and no. And then I went to Ad Labs, I remember, with Renu Seluja, and I was assisting Renu at that time. And I asked Mohan Shetty for credit. I said, would you process the negative on credit? And he said, who makes a film with their own money? And when are you going to pay me back? And I said, in 6 months or something, I'll pay you back. And he said, if you can't, I don't know. It was just so, I was just so confident. I mean, I don't think I thought, to be honest, I didn't think I wouldn't get money. I didn't think I wouldn't be able to pay him back. I didn't think things through. I just jumped into it, and not knowing what to expect. I mean, Manjeera had just paid me 30,000 rupees, which was a lot of money in those days. I bought 11 rolls of stock, I remember. We went to Kodak. You had to join IDPA, you had to get a permit, so you bought stock. 10 or 11 rolls, and that was it. That's what our first schedule was. And and Anand gave us the equipment free. I just had to pay for a plane ticket for London. And Mohan was in Pune at the time. He was in Bombay. Bombay. So 4 of us, I think, took a taxi to Pune. We lived in a friend's mother's flat in Kanchan Gully, which is no distance from Koth Road. We took autos, we cooked, or we ate out. It was very cheap those days. And that was it. We spent a week, I think, or 5 days or 6 days, whatever. It didn't cost that much, 30,000 was the first schedule. And of course, then by then I realized, then we put a trailer together, and I realized I wasn't going to be able to raise money, and it would have to be, I was editing other films and I was saving money, and then it went on, got longer and longer. And Mohan Shetty was very kind. He was very, very kind, and he said, it's okay, you can pay me whenever. So I paid him right at the end when I had to take it to Prasad for the final print and negative cutting.
How long did it take for you to edit the film?
We did some editing in '89, maybe 3 weeks or something, and then 91. I spent about 3 months. So 2 months, 3 months. So overall 3 months, I think, 3.5. Yeah. So the first schedule and the second schedule, when Mohan and I went back and we did some close-ups and general shots. So, where she's reading the newspaper and the pizza story and
Yeah.
the book with the pages fluttering in the other room, some stuff like that we did. A lot of the close-ups that come at the end in the second schedule, which was 3 or 4 days. And then I put together a rough cut, Smriti and I, and we had a screening for friends, and they were very brutal, and I'm actually extremely grateful for that, because there was this complete silence at the end of the thing, and nobody said a word, and it was quite long. And finally then these guys said, acha chalo yaar, daru kahan milegi, and chalo daru pilao, that sort of thing. I was like, you've just seen a rough cut, don't you have anything to say? And then they just said, it's awful, it's so boring, it's dull, it's not at all what it's not what you've been talking about her. And it's not representative of that at all. There's no feeling. And they were really very hard hitting in their criticism. And that's when I realized that actually, because of the shortage of stock, and also because I'd never seen a film like that, like Kamlabai before, where the character is just herself and she's talking to the unit and she's kind of, freaking out and just being naughty and wicked and, just being herself. So so that's when I realized that the film that I wanted to make was actually the film that I was not allowing myself to make. We were always switching off the camera when she was talking to us and so on. And so the third schedule, I think, was really with this understanding of that's the film. Um, the spirit of this woman is completely lost in these sort of. So the first day's interview, Suresh, you remember that? The first day that we interviewed, we reached her house and it's just bare walls. And the first room in her house is a bare hall. There was nothing, and then you just went in, and there's a bedroom, there's a kitchen, there's a bedroom. So we pulled out 2 chairs, and she had all her trophies on top of a cupboard. So there's a shelf in the second bedroom on which there was some mirror and comb and all. So we brought that shelf into the hall. We brought the trophies down. We, dressed up that space and put the 2 chairs. And she was wearing a sari. I mean, she was wearing a blouse, petticoat. And I said, "What is this? You're not ready to shoot." And she said, "This is the way I dress." And I said, "No, no, no, we're making a film. You want to look good. You got to dress up." And she complained, and I said, "No, you have to wear a sari." So we pulled out the sari and combed her hair and made her sit in one of the chairs. So then she froze because, then it was like, okay, you ask me a question and I'll answer it. And so I said, "Now, why can't you talk?" It was a disaster. The first day was a disaster. So she said, "How can I talk? You put me in this chair, you changed the house, you're making me wear a sari. Then you ask the question and I'll answer, the question you asked me." So I think, yeah, that was huge learning. Uh, uh, and also, I was very blessed. I have to say this. I mean, I had the most fantastic team. I didn't know Suresh and Mohan. They were really, they came via Ranjan. Spirit of it because of her. She was just so super. And so I think everyone would talk very freely. We all talked every day in the evening about what we'd shot, what was wrong, what we felt, what was not happening, what was not working. And so the next day we decided we wouldn't do this. We wouldn't change the house at all. It would be the way it was. If she was sleeping, we'd shoot her sleeping. If she was eating, we'd shoot her eating. We just go with the flow. We just follow her and that sort of thing. And yeah, I guess we sort of, I mean, just sort of, yeah, slowly got the hang of it. But I was still switching off the camera. I mean, I was just a run and cut, just we can't have all this cute stuff, on we're wasting footage. But yeah, the third schedule was like, yeah, go for it. Everything that happens in front of the camera is being recorded, is being shot. And yeah, so that was like the film turned around. And like I said, I'd never seen anything like this. I didn't know that this was the form the film was going to take. And that's how it just, it just shaped, it got shaped somehow during the making of it. Developed along the way, yeah.
So, sir, was it challenging for you to record sound in such an empty space?
Not really. Thankfully, the house was not that boomy, if I remember. The other things used to be like the typical, urban India. So we would sometimes get somebody's work happening, some this happening, somebody's cooker is going off. So I was very raw. So for me, every little thing used to be a problem. So now I've kind of, over the years, I've kind of begun to at least a certain extent, embrace the problem. Saying that, so for me, it was pristine was the only thing. So now I've kind of maybe wiser, I don't know. But so, of course, there is a problem, but my number of problems have kind of reduced because I've kind of decided to embrace some of those problems. I realize if I don't do that, this film will not be able to be, there's no film.
So you used booms all throughout, or did you?
Yeah, complete boom, except like the last schedule, I had a wired lavalier, no wireless. So some of the stuff which were a little more set up, I would mic her. But otherwise, it was just that Sony mic. Sony mic and the stick to hand ports. That was the.
So how did the whole crew gain her trust? Like the kind of things she has spoken on camera, and even for you to put a mic on her, there has to be some kind of trust. So was she open from the first day, or did she slowly opened up as you shot?
See, the mic, the lavalier mic happened only in the last schedule. So by that time, we had spent time with her. We've kind of a little more. There was this rapport with her, and I would ask. So that's how we.
I think there is one shot in which is it you in that shot in the balcony?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you can see the mic headphones here
with Walkman. So.
Yeah,
so there was.
She had all of us eating out of her hands. It was, she was hugely indulged. She had company for the whole day. She would tease us all. I don't think at 88, and coming from the kind of, theater background where I think that she did, why should she have hesitation in talking about her father the way she does? So she didn't. No, and I don't think very, very straight. She was you meet people in the 80s and 90s, they're straight. They're nothing to hide or fear. But she was also a lot of fun. And she was very relaxed because she was an actress. She was very professional. She'd say, Kal kitne baje aa rahe ho? And, I'll be ready, I'll eat by then, and, something, whatever. She was, yeah, I don't know if we were so raw, as Suresh says, we were so raw. We weren't a crew in that sense. We were just a bunch of young people, just landing up. And we discuss our lives with her. She would tease us endlessly, She was curious about us also. That's not part of the film, thank God. But yeah, yeah. I don't think in this film there was a question of trust or not trusting. We were very and straight away, and that was it. Yeah, she loved it. She would tease them endlessly, and that's not. Yeah.
So you think being a woman filmmaker has given a certain tenderness to the film?
Maybe, yeah.
Or for films in general, do you think films directed by women have a certain kind of perspective which male filmmakers miss?
I think they are different. I think films made by women are different. I'm not quite sure how. I mean, I am part of a festival. I've contributed over years to a festival, which is the Asian Women's Film Festival. And we screen only films made by women of Asian origin. And I know when you see a film, there is a quality, and maybe tenderness is one of those qualities that you see in the work. That you don't see in men's work. But certainly, I think, yes. I think she took to me because I was a woman. And I think there is a warmth and sweetness that is there because we are two women across generations. But yeah, we're two women. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a difference. I'm not quite sure what. I'll be honest. I mean, in works by women and in works by men, what's the difference? Not really quite sure.
So your comments?
Me? Yeah, I'm
Or-
sure.
Or is it different working with a woman filmmaker? Is it any different?
I've worked with a lot of women filmmakers. Some of them have been very pleasant, but some of them have not been very pleasant. It's the same story with men also. Some of the men filmmakers that I work with have been really enjoyable, and some not. So I don't see. If I gel with the person, I gel with the person. Then work is then fun.
But would you say there's a difference in the film, Suresh? Is that?
I don't know. It's something I don't think I've given thought to it. I'm not so sure. I mean, in this film, surely yes. Yes, there is. And if it were a male filmmaker making this film, it would be surely different. That I am very sure of. But generally, I don't know if it's not something that I've kind of given a thought to.
So, how do you design emotional graph for any character, especially in documentary? And if you feel that the graph is being kind of flat, then do something that would help the graph a little bit.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, no, I don't provoke the character to do anything. I think if I'm making a film on a person, then I just go with whatever that person's all about. If you're shooting for a length of time, if you're looking at something like conflict or drama or something like that might happen. We were making, again, Suresh was on that crew. It was a different crew, but Suresh was there. I had to make a film on 4 women who were sort of, it was a film on Panchayati Raj, and we were looking at Panchayati Raj through 4 women who were very active in their communities and their village and so on. And so the husband of one of the women had a drinking problem, and he landed up drunk, and so there was a lot of drama. That's not something I would have wanted, but I think in a documentary situation, you often do. And I think if people's lives filmed over time will reveal all kinds of conflicts. Some of it can be inner conflicts, some of it can be an external whatever. But somebody might break down and somebody might have a meltdown or whatever. And that's, I think, whatever happens. No, I don't provoke. That's one thing I learned in Kamlabai. Definitely not to force myself. My interaction is definitely with them is definitely part of the film. It's helping them to be a certain way, or is framing the film a certain way. But no, I don't provoke. No. I wouldn't.
She was speaking about Narak Yatna, she was I called the people. So from that point on, the film actually took a different kind of emotional turn. It became certainly very serious from this very cheerful old lady to something very serious and something very deep. So that's why I was wondering, and has it happened?
I wasn't there when this happened, this conversation. Suresh was alone with her, and it's only on tape. It's not on camera. Ranjan wasn't there either. We weren't there in the room. Suresh, is that right? Is my memory right? Anyway, it's only on tape. And in fact, we were just sitting. She was sort of, she'd finished with dinner. It was one of those late nights. I think we were about to pack up, like in a day or so. Maybe she was feeling a bit low because, we were about to leave. I can't quite remember what caused it. But she was sitting with Suresh. And he said, "Should I roll?" And I said, "Absolutely." She was just talking. It just, so that conversation's dark. It's really a loss of faith. It's a kind of, I didn't want to end with that, but I couldn't have it come in the middle and then have, I wanted to move away. And the conversation where the film closes, where she's explaining about how she used the word chutiya and all that sort of thing, was actually in the middle of the film. But you know how it is on a Steenbeck, you thread your reels, right? You show one reel, and so I was showing the rough cut to friends, and Vengelis and Elita, and so I'd finished reel 1, and I was just threading reel 2, and Vengelis said, "Is the film over?" And I said, "No, there's reel 2, and just And he said, "But that's the end of your film. That sequence is the end of your film." So I said, "Abhi dekho, we watched this." Anyway, so his first reaction was that, and he actually contributed a lot, I have to say. There were also these two wonderful interviews with her sons, Chandrakant and Lalji. Chandrakant was an actor. Lalji was a musician, very well-known tabla player, and they had these amazing interviews of their mother. Uh, they used to sell those little booklets, song booklets. These were all musicals, and so the boys would sell these little booklets and make money of that, and that also helped them enter the auditorium, and they could hear their mother. So Lalji talked about that, the kind of powerful voice she had, and how a lot of male actors would be nervous acting opposite her because of the powerful voice she had. And they had memories, and Chandrakant did a demo of the kind of acting you needed to do in those days, because the acoustics, I mean, there were no acoustics, and the kind of emphasis and the way you had to sort of dramatize in this really larger than life sort of way, and how acting has changed, and how he's also changed as an actor over time. Yeah, so there were these amazing interviews, and Vengela said, throw those interviews out. And I was like, no, you can't. And so much of the thing was torn between her and giving a sense of the times, and so all of that. So he said, no, every time you leave her, you're well, if you're going to, it was a 90-minute rough cut, and clearly some things had to go. So he said, you've got to try this. And so anyway, I reshuffled and I threw Lalji and Chandrakant out, and it's true, it was a different film, and it really works. And that's the film I finally see. And I remember Ranjan seeing it and saying, where are those interviews? And I'm like, they're not there now. They're not going to be there now. And he said, no, big loss, and you have to bring them back. But by then I was like, no, they're not coming back. They were making the film different. So yeah, I think, yeah, the film benefited a lot from different comments and different people pitching in at different stages and saying, this works, this doesn't work. So that gave me we were back to being cheeky and naughty, and I didn't want to end on this really low, where she's sort of weeping and breaking down, and because that's not her. That really wasn't her. It's not like I was injecting some kind of falseness into the thing. She'd been through a lot. I mean, she was a widow at 25 or something, and I mean, the kind of things she's been through as a young woman in theater. I mean, you can imagine. And she wasn't bitter. She was not. I mean, she was just so gung ho. She was so spirited. I mean, the film is not. It's not faking it. And I think she taught us all a lot. I remember at the end of the first schedule, we weren't even sure if she would be alive. I mean, I didn't know I was to come back. And I remember everyone touching her feet. And I was really shocked at these guys. I mean, Ranjan and Suresh. I mean, we were so taken up by her. They actually touched, respect. Just, yeah, we learned a lot, I think. Huge amount from her. Yeah.
Sir, I forgot to ask this. In that shot where you are making her listen to her own voice, how was her reaction? Because she was a stage actress, and
So
yeah. We were just, I think, playing it back for her so that she kind of, she was like listening to what she said and said like, am I saying it right? And is my performance good?
Yeah.
That's it. That's
But she'd never seen the Bombay Doordarshan interview, and she was very keen on seeing. In fact, she's the one who told us about it and said, spending a lot of time in Doordarshan because I think he was working on Bharat Code interview. She watched that. I mean, she wanted to, know what that was all about.
Has she seen the film?
Yeah. Of course, yeah. Biff and coming to that new tape, and I want to show you the film because it's going to show in Bombay, and I wanted to show you before that. And so Ajji said, बाबा तो है नहीं, तो फिर कभी देखेंगे क्योंकि भाड़े पे लेना पड़ेगा, फिर तुम्हारा पैसा जाएगा ये वो, and we'll watch it all together. And the film's ready, but if you I want her to see it and I want her to okay it. And she said, why are you so nervous? And I said, she's used all this language and I'm not sure it's okay. And she started laughing. She said, kya bole? I said, chutiya boli hai. So she said, oh, it's okay. She's used worse language. It's okay. It's fine. Just show the film. It's fine. Anyway, when we showed it to Chandrakant after the Biff screening, they all loved it. They laughed, and I mean, they had no problems. Nobody had a problem. I don't think they even thought I'd finished the film, frankly. I mean, it was just something. Some crew would float in and float out, and we were very slow. We'd shoot very slowly. We'd take a shot, and there'd be a lot of sitting around because she'd just be sleeping or chatting, or then there was nothing to shoot. I don't think anyone thought a film ban rahi hai, or क्या बनेगा, किसी को नहीं मालूम था कुछ. It was, I think they were surprised it was even ready, and they liked it. The only thing she didn't like was she, when she's acting that night performance, she's acted 2 male roles, and when I've cut is when she's got her head down and now she's going to take on the part of the woman. So she puts her head down and, she says some lines. And I cut there because, it was just so long. And she said, yahan kyun kaata? So I said, बहुत लंबा हो गया था. She said, किसने बोला? I said, जिन को दिखाया रफ कर तो वो बोले कि लंबा है, or, you should just, so I cut it there. So she said, that's terrible because, I remembered 3 roles after all these years, and you should have at least kept a little bit of, my acting, the female role. Damini, whatever.
Dhairyadhar
and Dhamini, something, whatever. Anyway. So I said, now it's too late. The negative is cut. And I can't really. I mean, and it would have been going back to Pune. I mean, I could see for her how it was important to, I mean, I hadn't thought of it. And but I mean, it's okay. It was done. And I just said it's going to be very expensive trying to, restore a little 2 lines of this woman's dialogue. And we left it at that. I mean, I don't think she was worried. I mean, she, it was not a big deal for her also, I think. She just said, "Oh, rakh lena tha." And but they all loved the film. They loved it. I mean, yeah. In fact, she had a lot of people coming to meet her after, the film. People saw the film. I mean, Vijaya Mule went, Paresh Kamdar went. I mean, lots and lots and lots of people went to meet her, would take her number and address and land up and interview her or chat with her. Yeah, so I think, yeah. And there's nothing in the film that's false or fake or not her, or, you know, so.
So, do you think you are a better director or a better editor?
Editor.
You prefer
Very
editing more
good
than...
editor, very, very good editor. I'm not so sure as a filmmaker. I think I made 3 films that I'm really proud of, but other than that, okay. I'm good at my craft as a director, but I don't think I've, apart from these 3 films, it's not like I've done some phenomenal work. Yeah. I mean, I've made more films, but out of that 3 is what I would really.
And you yourself being an editor, how do you work with other editors, like editors working on your film, which you have directed?
Well, I have to have another editor. I can't bear to watch my films after I've spent time shooting them, and I have no objectivity at all. So it's very hard. It was very hard for me to do Kamlabai, and I couldn't have done it without other friends coming, watching the rough cut, commenting, and sitting with me bit by bit, and not always film friends, even other friends and so on. So I've always had to have, an editor. And the second, Skin Deep was edited by Arjun to a great extent. He did the rough cut. Then he had a back problem and then I had to finish it. But again, I had to get somebody to sit with me and help me shorten it. I have no objectivity. And I don't sit on the editor's head at all. I don't like that. My director's doing that to me. And I was in Calcutta when Arjun was editing Skin Deep. He used to live in Cal, so I went there. And that's when I really saw Calcutta. I did sightseeing every single day. So after 4 days, he'd say, come and see the sequence, and I'd land up, and then we'd see it and talk about it, and then he'd say, chalo, ab jao, and I'll see you after another few days. I don't sit there. I want to be surprised. I want to see what they do with the material, because I know what an editor can do with documentary footage. And On an Express Highway was made again because of Nirmal. He put it together. He said, you have to have your own voice. And I said, I can't, I don't know what to say. And he said, it's your looking at this process. He put the film in my head, what I had to say and how it had to be structured. And so it's always my editors who've done that. Yeah, I like it. You can go and have a haircut, you can take a walk, you can do so many things. You can just sleep. It's so nice.
So any bit of advice for upcoming documentary filmmakers especially, and upcoming documentary editors, that they need to, any kind of mantra you would like to give?
For a director, I think, I don't know. Suresh, what do you say?
I have no mantra.
No, I have no.
Any bit of advice or caution for upcoming sound recordists?
I don't know, nothing.
I know this isn't very helpful, so I'm trying to think. Actually, for an editor, I think you can't make the film you want to make. Somewhere you have to draw the line between what you have to listen very, very carefully to what your director wants, and they're often not the most articulate of people. It's different when the film's put together and they have to face an audience. Then everyone sounds very articulate, but really at the editing stage, they're very, very vulnerable because they're not sure of the material they've got. They've often not got what they wanted to get, and they're not sure. They're not sure at that stage. And I think you've got to be you've just got to listen a lot to what they want, what the film they're seeing in their heads. And then you have to just, so The one thing I do is I always also ask the director to do a structure first, the first structure, so that they see what they've set out to make, you know. And that's a good starting point. So I put it like that. I assemble it or rough cut it like that, and that's a good point because then you can, you know, they've had their say. They've put it together in the way they see it in their head, and then I can I mean I often completely like rearrange it, but I do it that way first. It's not always like that, but often it's like that. Yeah, and I just listen a lot. I just listen a lot to this. Sometimes read the proposal they've sent for funding. But as a director, I'm not sure. I would say listen to your crew. I think choose your crew carefully, and listen to them because they teach you a lot. I think your crew teaches you a lot, um, and again, I don't think you can impose on the character or the situation that you enter. You also have to be open to being contradicted or discovering that it's not what you thought it was or what it seemed to be. You have to be very open. You have to also be able to think on your feet. It's quite I mean, I know with Skin Deep, for instance, we went to Pune to shoot the first interview, and these are 6 narratives about women and body image and self identity among 6 urban women. With this woman, and she said, I can't shoot. I don't want to shoot. I had to find out why she didn't want to shoot. And I had to so I sort of fictionalized the film. And yeah, so sometimes the form is develops out of the circumstances that you face, and you have you have to be quite I think open and sensitive to other people's vulnerabilities. You know, you're kind of filming people I think at a time in their lives, and that's going to be frozen forever, you know, for people to see. I mean, we're seeing Kamlabai 30 years after it was made, and you know, so you have to be careful. I mean, Suresh and I worked on this film that I shot on a Jain Sadhvi. And again, you know, it was a proposal I put to PSBT. And I'd heard of this young woman who'd taken Diksha and she'd given up the material world. And I put that proposal to PSBT, and they were funding the film. When she reached Ahmedabad for the research, her guru said, you can't film, you can't photograph, you can't even tape her voice because we don't believe in that. We don't believe in consuming energy to, uh, you know, because that kills Jeev. And we have to do the minimum sort of loss of life. You know, we have to be responsible for lives that are lost even during this process of filming. So I remember when we started filming, we were filming with the family, we were doing side interviews, other stuff, and I was still mulling over how to the film together and trying to figure out. So you'd also listen to your crew because you have a crew that you respect or admire or like or whatever love, and you listen to them. You know. So I would say as the director, yeah. Although in nowadays, I think a lot of people are also doing one person crews. Like Nirmal shoots a lot of his films alone, and so then I guess you're just listening to yourself. You've got to figure out a lot of stuff on your own. Yeah, so there's no one mantra. There's no mantra.
If at all, I would suggest that when I find a lot of people getting caught up in using so many mics and so many tracks and things like that. Uh, for me, it is keep it simple as possible. Uh, that is, it's like when I look at the recorder that I'm using these days, but those kind of recorders used to be in a corner of a studio. Okay, they were like huge recorders which could never move. Once it comes to a studio, it lives there. And now, what those recorders could do, I have it on my shoulder. Do I need them? Yeah, sometimes. But you don't need them all the time. So, I mean, I find this like, ये रिकॉर्डर में इतना ट्रैक है, ये रिकॉर्डर में इतना ट्रैक है. Yeah, tracks will help, but that's not the that's not the only thing you're looking for. And like I said even earlier, have to embrace what you're doing.
Mm.
Otherwise, I mean, especially in a country like India, which is like a very noisy kind of country that we are, we can make any documentaries, particularly films in general. Kind of give them the respect. It's like, I mean, I find some people just like miking people, simple things. Like make them understand what you're trying to do, why are you doing it, and then do it. And if you don't have to mic them, don't mic them. I mean, if I mic somebody, I mean, if I don't mic somebody that I can't get my sound, it's the only situation I do. It has to be really noisy or the frame doesn't allow me to boom it, only then. Or we're shooting in a certain way that, miking is very important. Otherwise, I find it kind of intrusive to kind of enter into somebody's kind of space. They're not actors.
Yeah, but don't you think sometimes that when you give them these wireless mics and that it's easier for them to be themselves, because having this boom in your head, Suresh, is also quite
No,
no.
no. I mean, putting it inside. I mean, like, see, it's not that you put the mic and it suddenly some rustle will come, and in the time when that person is saying the most important thing that will kind of make the film or something is when I get one like happening. And I don't want to be no, sorry, cut. Sorry, I want to do that as minimal as possible. And battery running out, it's like I would rather be in control than yeah, it seems damn, I mean, tougher to boom and everything, but I would rather do that.
So Nachi, do we have viewer questions?
Yeah, that's what I was seeing. Not uh, nothing as such a question sort. But I just have two questions to both of you, to ma'am and sir. As we discussed, am I audible?
Yeah.
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 As we discussed earlier, also like we were talking about the uh, what you call that, the people really watching the films or not in an online platform. So in the era, especially after the pandemic, when the theaters are not there and people are being consumed by this OTT platform, and like mostly it has become almost like this is the screen, this is the size of the screen. Like people are watching in the mobile, and the attention span is very uh, like it's almost like 5 minutes they will watch something and they will move on to other things. So in this kind of a situation, like how do you uh, see a filmmaker like yourself or others, young filmmakers, uh, what should they actually do? Like, because this has become a reality now, people are watching films in mobile and like other kind of devices. So is it going to change the way filmmakers think? Do you think that is we should adapt to that, or we should still fight and like try to find a, I don't know, maybe a middle way? Or yeah, I don't know whether I'm making it understandable, my question.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
Look, I think there are two things. One is that I think the form of the film is sometimes dictated by the situation you're in.
Mm.
So in Kamlabai, for instance, she's on a bed and there's nothing to pan to or tilt to. She's sitting in one place. She doesn't move around very much. So we decided to keep the camera on a tripod and we just filmed in natural light because there was no money A to get artificial lights, and B there was no way you could suddenly switch on lights and then shoot, or that sort of thing. So sometimes, of course, the form is dictated by the situation, the conditions, or what you're trying to say, or whatever. But this is, I guess, the first time, or in recent years, we're seeing people viewing films on smaller and smaller screens. So if you see yourself making, if I were to make a film that somebody is only going to view on their telephones, I would, keep that in mind. Yeah, because all this time we've been doing it for a large screen and an auditorium. And even when it became like television, like, this film is going to be viewed on Doordarshan, like PSBT films, for instance. Then the size of the subtitles, the way you frame, um, all that changed.
And
At
also
least
the
for me,
pace,
yeah, I would.
and also the pace for a film, like the genre, everything is being dictated by these platforms.
So I think here again, if I were to make a film now, and I haven't made one for 10, 11 years, but I do think I definitely want to make a film on mobile phones now, on my phone, shoot
Mm.
it myself, short films, because I don't think long films work on telephones. And I would, yeah, shoot a lot more close ups, do differently, completely, yeah. If I were to think that that's my audience now, and it's going to be a long time before people are going to get into theaters, yes, I would do it differently.
So for sound, it
It has.
becomes
What if
more.
it continues after the pandemic?
It may actually.
Sorry, what if it continues? What beyond the pandemic? You're
Yeah.
saying?
Yes, yes.
I mean, theaters are open and people still prefer to.
Yeah, people will. They will. When you see, I mean, there was this film festival in Bagli in Madhya Pradesh, and there was something like, I think, 4 or 5 thousand, I don't know, maybe 3,000 or whatever, thousands anyway, sitting in the open watching a film. And you're like, yeah, you can't have too many long shots. You can't. When you're cutting to a close and somebody's speaking, it's a different. when you watch your film projected in different spaces, that's when you're understanding. जब तुम बना रहे हो, it's one thing. You're not thinking of it in the kind of space it might play out. You're always thinking of a theater, but you see it in an open space. You see it on a telephone. Yeah, it's very different. And if I were to, like I'm saying now, now of course that people are going to watch films on, and if I'm making films on my phone, I just want it. Yeah, I just want a lot of people to watch it on their phones. I'm not looking at theatrical releases or anything, or even a laptop or some chota screen. Yeah, it can be different. Much more close-ups, different, faster cutting, more energy.
Okay. So for you, like, this question is more valid because half of the time this mobile, the effort what we put in the track, and half of the time you won't even hear those sounds, even with the good earphones or something. So isn't it disappointing to a great level also to the efforts what we put? And there is also a kind of standardization. All these platforms,
Yeah.
yeah, they will put a filter or they will crop the video. All these things happen, and like if it is a period film, it has to be a Mexican filter. They will put a yellow color. There's so much of standardizations have come. So how somebody will uh, actually deal this, like, because institutes are the places where we learn. There it's a complete what you call, it's a utopian world. We've been shown the extraordinary films and like the good projection, and we are even worried about the small things when we are shooting a diploma. But then you come and like you have to be here. This is the field you're playing. So somebody might just get completely lost in this thing. So that's why this question came. Ma'am, sir, you would like to add anything? Because I have another question for both of
Yes,
you.
Suresh? No, because for sound, it's a huge problem. Yeah, like you said, all the
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like I'm having constant fights with my nephew. For example, he says, "What should I watch?" So he keeps asking me. So I tell him, "Watch this." Then then he'll tell me, "See, I'm watching it." What?
Yeah.
You better not watch this. So I keep having this fight with him. But I don't know. Then I just shrug my shoulders and I just walk away.
No, but having said that, I mean, if it's not the phone, I think on a laptop or a slightly larger
I
screen,
keep telling him, at least watch it on a computer.
not bad. And if you
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
you hear this track, you do
Yeah.
hear the track. I mean, I'm curating for two festivals, and I've also been working as jury. So if you're sitting in a quiet room and you have to then make sure that, yeah, I'm watching a film, it's a large TV, it's the editing screen with external speakers, six small speakers. I mean, I've watched some Film Institute films, for instance, and it's wonderful. You do hear the track. It's just that you have to be aware that there is this element to watch out for. There is such a thing as a soundtrack. There is such a thing as a good image, and you can enjoy the film for those reasons. Whereas I think, yeah, I mean, if you're watching it on your phone, you're not watching a film for that. You're watching it for different reasons.
It's like I keep telling him, it's like for me, if I'm watching a film, I have to be sitting and I have to be watching. He will be. So, what do I tell him?
You can't. You have to accept that that's the way some of your audience or a large part of your audience is. And
Yeah, it's like sometimes I've had this kind of issues in like some of the classes I've conducted. I'm showing a clip, and some of the students are like this, watching the film. Is it like have some respect? too old.
Notion
I
of
think.
respect, Suresh, is also, I think it's cultural. It's also a gender.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I've edited with Western directors, let's say, and this one of them used to put his feet on the steam bag, and I used to get shocked. I said, "How can you put your feet up on the steam bag?" But I think for him it was like, what is it? So this whole business of respect, I think, is also a bit like Indian and
Yeah, because we
generational.
do puja, no? We do puja in the
It
institute.
is generational for sure.
Yeah.
Generational for sure. No, it is for me. It's like if I don't want to watch the film, I'll just shut it. Okay. If I'm watching a film, I'm all there.
What do Akash and Nachi have to say? I want to know what you guys have to say. You're going to make.
We have also accepted this change
No,
now
we have accepted the change. Yeah.
because
Watching films on your phone.
No, I can't do
back in
that.
bed.
I can do YouTube videos. I can watch some cookery videos or other things in.
yes, when I'm traveling, I do watch films.
Say, I can't watch a film on my mobile. No,
And
I can't.
No, I can't watch
and
films.
especially if you're doing DIT for some film, then you have no option. I watched a lot of films, movie films on my phone when I'm transferring it. So, actually, I've got used to that kind of aesthetics, this small screen, because I know,
So do you think that's going to affect the way you make films?
of course, yeah, it is going to affect. It is affecting already.
It is.
No, not
Because
just.
phone in theater, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Not just in the terms of aesthetic. It is also deciding a lot of our political viewing and uh, which characters we are going to. Because it's if the consumption. That's my next question also. Like people are talking about this digital revolution, where they're telling that it has democratized the cinema, like, but the same thing they told it with online classes, and we know the reality now. More than half of the population I've seen, my neighboring kids or even more underprivileged kids, they don't even have any source of any kind of internet thing. So when we say this has democratized cinema to a great extent, is it really something which you also agree to, in terms, not in terms of the accessibility of for a filmmaker? I'm talking about the spectator for that matter. Is it really has it really democratized cinema in that way? Do you think it's more uh, what to say, working class friendly in terms of the consumption, I'm telling?
Well, access, yes, but like Suresh is saying, I mean, a lot of those films cannot be watched on telephones. A lot of classics can't. It would depend on the kind of film. I mean, you can't watch Tarkovsky on a telephone, on a mobile screen. You're not going to get anything out of it. I mean, you'll have to watch it on definitely some midway screen, even if you can't enter a theater. Okay, so you can't enter a, even a college theater or something, but you want to see it otherwise, you'll still have to see it on a bigger screen. Even Ray, who's dramatic and all of that, but to enjoy I don't think you can watch them on telephones, mobile screens. No. So democratization is one thing. Accessibility, yeah, the internet has made a lot of things possible, accessible. I watch a lot of films on Mubi, and I'm sure watching them in a theater is going to be very different, but that's a long way away, and there's still no reason why I shouldn't watch them. So it's a reduced experience, maybe, but it's still an experience, I mean, that I can access. And I think that's important. It's very important. A lot of people are watching films that they wouldn't have seen otherwise because they had the time in the early months of the pandemic. I think everyone was more open to. I mean, I had a lot of people saying, "Tell us what to watch," and watching it. And I think that's great.
And this question is to you particularly, because as you said that I also believe being a women filmmaker brings a quality. Like one thing is obviously the uh, one is the grace, if I have to put a word, or a sensuality, or a kind of lightness, uh, which is there in Kamlabai also. For instance, if I were to shoot such a film on Kamlabai or some other people who are female by gender, but I know my limitations. But how do I negotiate this? Like, is it also something to do with the crew? For instance, what difference it would have made if you had a women crew, like all women crew, maybe a female cinematographer also. So one thing is, how do I negotiate it as a male by gender, and the other thing is whether it is also making a difference when you work with a crew which is also a female, like women crew.
Okay, so I have to say I've never worked with an all women crew. I have worked with women who are camera women, but like I said, I think it's all about communication. And so, I mean, with my friends, I'm not uh, with my crew members, let's say, I'm looking more for friendship and the kind of conversations I can have with them, or the kind of how much I trust them with their work, also, the kind of quality or empathy they bring to their work. So, when I'm looking at a crew, I'm looking at different things. I'm not looking at gender. And when I shot Skin Deep, uh, I thought I would do it with an all women crew and all that sort of thing. And in fact, there was this one space, it was a YWCA workshop, and there was a counselor who was taking them through certain experiences and feelings about their bodies and themselves and so on. And I used Ranjan, and I must say, I think Ranjan is also he's he's quite unique as a cameraman. I think he's quite invisible. I don't think after the first 10-15 minutes or so that women were even aware that there was shooting going on. And I think as a director, I know when I have to sit back and I can just let the cameraman, we have conversations maybe or whatever, but you just let some bits of Kamlabai were shot with just Ranjan and Suresh. Because you can't have four people in a room, in a small room. You also have to give them space to move if necessary, or the character to interact. And so yeah, well, okay, so this is many things, but essentially, I have to have a crew that I can work with, that I can actually vibe with, and so it's nothing to do with their gender. And I think a lot of spaces that you might be anxious about, that women are going to be talking like this, and I can't have a man in and all. It doesn't matter. It hasn't, at least for me. And
The other question about,
what was the other thing?
no, yeah, other question was about,
How would
yeah, like if I were to, I or any other person who identifies themselves as a male, and if they were to do a film like these questions, how do they negotiate? Or
they'll have to. They have to. It's part of. I think filmmaking. I don't think filmmaking is a process outside of yourself. It's also confronting yourself, your fears, your anxieties, and your dealings with people and your relationships with people. So, I think I don't think a film is some job outside of yourself that you're doing, right? So, if you feel a certain way about interacting with somebody, um, I think if you really want to make that film, you'll have to find a way of making it work. And if you feel that you can't, then don't make, you know. I think if you're not comfortable, if you yourself are not comfortable in that space, you won't be able to make the film. So don't make it then. Don't propose it, don't look for funds for that, or don't make it, or whatever. I mean, there's some spaces which are male spaces where I wouldn't be comfortable. And I don't think I even want to make the effort to want to be comfortable. So even if I'm speculative about that kind of space, let's say, I don't think I'd make a film about it. I just wouldn't. I mean, I think there's enough else. But you do. I don't think you should look at your characters in terms of their gender necessarily. I don't. Or I don't really. You know. I think sometimes when there's a space, like let's say it's a young male, maybe wrestlers or even a performance group or something. Maybe then I might feel very odd. I mean, even if I was younger, I think I might have felt very odd. But then I wouldn't even want to make that film. I'd be curious, but I wouldn't make that. So I don't know if I've answered.
Yeah. Like it's a journey. Yeah, like I'm also not looking for
I think it's your
quick
interaction with your
solutions.
character.
Yeah.
If it works, it works. It's a relationship.
Mm.
And if it's not working because you're awkward, you need to work on the awkwardness. And if that awkwardness is still not something that you can overcome, then just don't make the film. Or make the film about that awkwardness and the questions that raises, you know, if that's possible. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'm done. Like Akash, you can if you
I'm
have
also
anything,
done.
then yeah. And thank you for both of you. Like I think we have stretched your dinner time and like a lot of other other things. We have given you trouble. Sorry
yeah,
for that.
thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Wonderful to talk to Suresh like this, interact with him and Akash and you. And thank you. Thank you for your invitation.
Thank you.